recognize that. I'm in the Hawaii Energy Conference all weekend, learning a lot about energy myself, which many of you are. So we just really wanted to kick off the discussion so we can hear from you. But I believe the wisdom's in the room, it's in the community, and it's not necessarily with ECO or the government. If we don't do something to take back control of our power and work on that together, it's just not going to happen. I think the time is right, the time is now, and it's really important to try to take back our power. And so I have Jamaica writing the summary of what issues come up. So as you're talking, she might write a little summary, and we'll make sure we try to get that right so we have a written record. And then David is going to write the summary of some of the solutions that come up. Not the whole solution, not everything, just like real quick summary points. We capture those. Plus, we are Facebook live streaming it, which is our method of recording it tonight. The streaming camera is right there, so it's streaming this group, and maybe you might catch the persons in the front. You don't want to be a camera talking farther back or something. But yeah, so that's what we're doing to try to also have a record that will involve the greater community. You probably all know about the bathrooms. They're photos on the wall, and they're at the end of the building. There are some snacks in there that help yourself against water. Logistics. So people, of course, want, to me, when I go to a county meeting and testify, I get 3 minutes, and that's that. And I don't even know if anyone heard me. And so I'd like to give you 4 minutes. But then actually I want to have a little discussion after each person speaks. So I have a little bit of to and fro, 1 or 2 questions at the most. And there's a lot of people in the crowd who know a lot of stuff too, and they want to participate. There's not that many of us, so if we can be orderly and not interrupt each other, be respectful even if you disagree, that would of course be important to, I think, all of us. And we just really want to come together and figure this out together, so I really want to hear from the wisdom in the room. And then we're all going to have a ballot, which Christine is going to ring. You want to try that out? 30 seconds to go. And then we do that. So it's very gentle. And yeah, always finish your sentence, that's fine. So we want to have a discussion. And we'll see how it goes. If it turns out we want to discuss one thing a little bit more, we'll do what we need to do, right? So I really want to hear from us, not from me and your opinion. And let's all, let's not get off on just one topic for too long either. There's lots to discuss, and trying to monopolize the floor. We'll be respectful of each other as well, as much as we can. Thank you. There was an entry survey. If you could take that, or is it not working?
No, it's working now. Sorry for the confusion. I'm going to pass the tool.
It's working. It's a phone thing. We're going to have written ones, but as well, but the old style didn't happen. It's the young stuff. Anyway, so this is a little survey. Put on the podium for that. And then there's also an exit poll. During the night, if we come up with some ideas, we might just think of, who agrees, who disagrees, so we can do that too, so we have some idea what this community, this group is thinking. All right, so I'm going to talk later again a little bit about governance and co-ops. We're going to lead off with Leilani, then Rob, then Jenny, then Henry, then Ian, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, which saves me so much memory.
Hello, Kako. My name is Leilani Chow, and I am from the island of Molokai. I am the Energy Sovereignty Program Lead with Sustainable Molokai. And for the past 14 years, I've been doing energy efficiency work on island, changing out light bulbs, refrigerators, freezers, washers, dryers, doing household energy audits within my community. And it's given me a really unique and very broad perspective on community, energy, concerns, preferences, dreams, questions, all that kind of stuff, which has led me to my position where I'm in now as a lead coordinator and facilitator for Molokai's community-led energy planning. And I do most of this work through my role as coordinator in the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, which is a community group. And I won't spend too much time talking about the Molokai Clean Energy Hui or our biggest project, which is the community-led energy planning called CRAP. What I wanted to share was some of the key pieces to making this kind of planning happen. And so I don't know how much you guys know about Molokai, but we have a very long history of saying no to every single energy project that has ever been proposed. For good reason. I think, a lot of these projects are proposed by off-island entities, and they don't align with our community values and the lifestyle and our goals as a community. And so the Hui got together to figure out what our community would like to say yes to and what kind of energy future we've envisioned for ourselves. And it started off where, we got together, made a huge list of all the questions that we have, and then we started going out and trying to get some of those answers. Talking to folks at HECO, and the PC, and the Hawaii State Energy Office, and Maui County, and on and on and on. Each answer led us to like 10 more questions. But what we quickly realized was that even if our community was super organized and on top of it and participating in the current energy planning process and system, it still wasn't enough to ensure that the projects that are developed on Molokai are rooted in our values and our goals as a community. And so we've taken on the role of energy planning from the ground up. And our community went from not being super energy experts and opposing every single project to designing 10 projects of our own that will get us to 100% by 2045. And it was done holistically in a way that was respectful of our culture, our values, and also technically feasible. And we are in round 2 now, which is taking each of those projects through the next phase of community-led co-design and technical assistance. But the key to being able to accomplish all of that was really the Molokai Clean Energy Hui. And so this is a group of 1/2 community folks, and we've also included folks from PC, Hawaii State Energy Office, HECO, Henry Curtis is a part of the Hui, Shayna Decker, all of the energy experts across Hawaii. Molokai actually has 6 different energy decision makers because we're an island within a county within the state kind of thing. And so we're bringing them all together to expedite the community's learning process so that we can plan holistically for what we want. And that is so much work, guys. Can I see by show of hands who's a Maui community member? Awesome. Well, okay, so that's like one of the first questions that you as a community has to figure out, right? Like, who is our community? Are we doing it like the whole island? And is it just people that live here year round? Or, all of those questions start with the community and have to be decided on by the community. What are our values? What are our goals? What do we want to see for our energy future? What are our questions? What are our standards that projects have to meet? And the Molokai Clean Energy Hui is in charge of taking all of those questions, finding the answers, collecting the feedback from the community, and organizing it in a way that also meets our standards of transparency and accountability. And that's the part of the energy planning process that is missing from almost all energy planning. And I hope this is this is helpful to think about what you folks have to do as a community of Maui if you really want to be a part of the energy decision making, and also just a reality check, because the community was in charge of essentially doing part of the job of the utility and raising all the money to provide paid professional staff and raising the money for our technical assistance and organizing our community, designing a process for decision making that is really accessible and tailor-made just for our island and the way that they want to engage, and then implementing it, and then writing it up and sharing it and advocating for it off island as well. And so I think, does anybody have any questions?
And we can ask questions later as well. I think we could go through everybody first and then do questions. Will have, but we've done that. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Zina mai kako waka waka inoa, e ho waka ho puka i ki mana la I ke kahi no muna o te ane ene ana I ke o I ki no I ki no iwa a ki no ako. My name is Rob Welkman, and on behalf of Maui Energy, I'd like to briefly mention some things I think are important when we consider the future of energy on our island, specifically Maui Island, not Maui County. Energy to cool, even if some things are with regards to energy to cool or heat our homes, to power our transportation, to keep our lights on, to enable communications and entertainment, and much more. It's something we often take for granted. But how the energy is produced and distributed can also have an enormous impact on our lives. Will we continue to pay higher prices for electricity than anywhere in the United States, almost 3 times the average, even when much of it is produced by solar panels and wind turbines that do not require much maintenance and do not require constant shipments of imported fuel? Will we lose power when there's a storm, shutting down not just Saturday Night Live, but also the dialysis machine? Will a transmission or distribution line fail and start a wildfire that destroys human lives and property? Will we see an end to the burning of fossil fuel and reach the Hawaii goal of net negative on greenhouse gases by 2045? Will there be enough electricity when all our cars are dependent on it? All those things are affected by the priorities of the organizations that manage our energy production and distribution, and by the structure of ownership and compensation that rewards some decisions and discourages others. Do we need to change that structure to address the energy goals of the community? The first thing to do is to discuss and become more clear on what those goals are. That is the purpose of this meeting. But for starters, just to get things going, here are some goals we have discussed. Resilience to wildfires and other disasters caused by human activity. Resilience to local disruptions in energy production and distribution. Reduce dependencies on imported energy sources. A green, healthy environment without pollutants. Equitable distribution of costs and benefits. Holistic management of land, rooftops, and other resources used in energy production. Reliable 24/7 availability of the energy we need. Reduction of the cost of energy for residents and local businesses. When we have a good understanding of our collective goals around energy production and distribution, it will be easier to figure out the steps we all need to take. For example, what are the green, renewable technologies that can replace the fossil fuel plants in Kamalui and Ma'alaya? How will electricity be made available to everyone who needs it, when they need it, and in the amount they need it? How will the investments to achieve these goals be financed? To help in getting the discussion going, I also want to mention a couple of potential directions that may be useful for Maui. There's been a lot of discussion around making our electric transmission and distribution lines safer in different ways, undergrounding them where possible, and replacing antiquated and dangerous towers and cables. That work has to continue because of our dependency on shipping power around the island, and because of the huge risks inherent in our aging system. However, rethinking the way energy is produced and distributed can also have significant impacts on those risks. Producing your own energy with photovoltaic panels on your roof is the most obvious way to reduce the need for energy distribution, but it has become more expensive for households in Hawaii because of the elimination of programs like net metering that allow people to produce extra electricity during the day and trade it for electricity from the grid at night. The more that electricity is produced and consumed within a household, neighborhood, or local community, the less need for and strain on distribution. Not everyone owns a roof to put solar panels on, and some may not be able to afford it. Pooling resources allows many more people to share in both providing the electricity we need and in benefiting from lower energy costs and more resilience. Community solar is is one program that allows people without a roof of their own to subscribe to electricity from a local project, like a very large number of solar panels on a church or commercial roof. But much more can be done to make better use of electricity within a local area without it passing through transmission lines across the island, or without forcing people to go completely off-grid. Even for solar and wind power plants, bigger is not always better. Energy production from a small plant that is mostly consumed within the immediate region can also reduce load on the grid, reduces risks, and increases resilience. It becomes more likely that outages on one part of the island can be confined and not cause outages in other parts. Having small plants spread out in communities, especially remote ones like in Hana, would make our island stronger and more resilient. You may have heard the term microgrid. While people mean different things with it, one very useful aspect is that the technology would allow a community to be normally integrated with the island-wide grid, but also function on its own when there are problems in other places. I hope some of these ideas will help you think about what you would like to see in Maui's energy future. Thank you for listening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Jenny Potter, and I am a former commissioner with the Public Utilities Commission here in Hawaii. So I've been asked today to talk a little bit about the Public Utilities Commission with all of you, give you an overview of what it is, what it does, and how it can actually help our process here as we think through community energy planning. So the PUC is a regulator. It's a government entity that regulates all of the utilities within the state of Hawaii. This is because the utilities are monopolies, and they have market control over all of our utilities. And so they regulate electricity, gas, water, wastewater, and transportation. And so Henry Curtis probably knows more about the Public Utilities Commission than I do, and so I'm actually pretty nervous sitting next to him, so he may correct me while I'm talking. So anyway, yeah, the Public Utilities Commission has been around the state for a long time, and its purpose is to help control utilities from acting, irrationally in a way that is not in the public interest. It does a lot more than that as well, but the idea is that without regulation, they can charge whatever, they can have a rate of return at whatever degree that they would like to assign it to be, and they generally can try and make as much money as possible. And the regulator's job is to really try and tamper that, if you will, and serve the public interest. Our priority at the commission was just and reasonable and in the public interest. So thinking about how to balance the needs of not only the utility, because they do need to be profitable in order to serve us and make investments, but also how to protect the public interest and make sure that the ratepayers and the benefits to the ratepayers are there and evident. So the Public Utilities Commission has 3 commissioners. I was one of them, and we served through 2018, and was a pleasure to do, 2022. You want to correct me on that one? Okay, so yeah, and let's see, and they have about 60 staff that work at the commission, and there's an executive branch which includes the compliance division. We have Dave Mateus in the back right here, who's the chief of the compliance department. Thanks for being here. We also have the policy and research department. They do all of the analysis on all of the dockets that come through. So applications that come through, they see everything that goes across the chief's desk. There's an debate that they miss. They do a ton of the research. They work with the information requests to the utility and other parties that are participating in various proceedings. So they're instrumental in helping us form our decisions and make those decisions. And then finally, we have the commission counsel. Like, Brian's looking at me like, what are you doing? Yeah, so commission counsel, and they are our lawyers, and they protect, the interest of the state as well as all of the ratepayers as well. They uphold the law and what's called the Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 269, which governs the Public Utility Commission. So it's all fun and exciting, but I want to just touch on really quick what we do, and then I want to touch on how we can actually leverage the PUC to help us accomplish some of our objectives here when we think about community energy planning. So the PUC oversees mergers and acquisitions. It does, it looks at utility investments, including capital improvement projects, things like undergrounding would be something that would come in front of the commission for evaluation. Also rate cases, rate changes for utility service. The financing agreements, anything that they enter into for financing, and able to access capital markets. Policy and programs for customers, things like community solar would be an example. Community solar is really intended to allow all members of society, of our ratepayers, to access renewable energy in a way that's shared. So it's a larger system that renters and people that are, that live in multi-family dwellings could subscribe to. That's something that the PUC has been pushing very hard for years to try and get off the ground, and with limited success, but those are the types of programs that we do try and shepherd through the process. I do say the collective we. So the commission also carries out state mandates. So the RPS goal of renewable portfolio standard of 100%. The commission has a responsibility to ensure that the utilities are compliant with that objective and that they're pursuing resources to meet those objectives. And the same thing with the greenhouse gas emissions. The carbon neutrality goal for 2045, we are responsible, or commission is responsible, the commission is responsible for doing greenhouse gas analyses for almost all of the applications that come through to ensure that we're meeting those objectives and we're making progress towards those goals. There's also clean energy initiatives, things like clean vehicle energy, electric vehicle charging units. They administer the rebate program for that, as well as compliance and civil citations. So a lot of responsibility for the PUC. One thing I wanted to touch on is I had a wonderful experience with the residents in Molokai. We had engaged, they had actually come to me years ago to ask questions about the PUC and the process. And this was when they were starting their progress in getting sustainable Molokai and the CRAP off the ground. And so I was able to sit down with them and explain the process and how things work. They asked excellent questions. They prepared themselves in a way that I'd never seen a community organization do. They learned the rules and the ropes and the tricks and the trades. And then when it was, that their objective was the community solar application was in front of us, and we were evaluating a request for proposals, and that request for proposals didn't meet the objectives that the community of Molokai sought. And so they asked, after going through an extensive education process, for the PUC to hold that application or that RFP in place and incorporate revisions that would meet some of the community's requirements and recommendations. And so as a commissioner, I said, yes, we can absolutely do that. And so that was sort of unprecedented in state history. That isn't something that typically had happened, but with a commission that's receptive to community needs and wants, you can actually accomplish quite a bit. So we revised that RFP and we were able to actually issue it. And we had, in Molokai, participated in that process, which was really, really important. And it was just great to be part of something that was so much bigger in reshaping the future of how our islands can think about community solar and renewable investments, and just been watching them with admiration along the way. It's just so incredible what they've done. And it's so great that they decided to partner with state agencies and really seek out opportunities to collaborate. So that's one way that we can work with our government agencies and really tapping into those that are receptive to community needs and interests, and working alongside them and making requests that are reasonable. Everything that they asked for was completely reasonable, and there's no reason why government entities should say, no. This is a great opportunity here today for us to come together and start localizing what we'd like to see take shape within our community here on Maui. So I'm excited that you're all here and really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Aloha, I'm Henry Curtis, Executive Director of Life of the Land. This is my 30th year of the organization, which has been around for 55, or in its 55th year. I've also been writing Ililani Media, now in its 11th year, which covers energy issues. It was the consumer advocate in Hawaiian Electric that designated us the most prolific intervener before the Public Utilities Commission, because among nonprofits that are not connected to either PICO or to competitors of PICO, we have been in 10 times more proceedings than anyone else. and we cover all aspects of energy policy. I want to point out that if you look at North America, the 90% of people who live in southern Canada, the 48 continental United States, and northern Mexico, they have 3 grids, 3 super grids. We have 6 grids. In addition, continents tend to be powered traditionally by coal, nuclear, and gas. Islands not connected to continents tended to be powered around the world by petroleum. So that makes our grid and our fuel sources much more like other islands and much less like continents. And so all the time we hear about, somebody did a microgrid in a small town in California, and look at what they did. Of course, the grid that they can tap goes from British Columbia to northern Mexico and covers 13 US states. So of course you can produce more energy at one point and less at the other in balance, but islands can't do that. So when we look at our grid and our fuels, it becomes much more important to compare us to islands and not to continents. On the other hand, it's much more useful to compare us to continents when we're talking about fires. Colorado, Texas, California, Oregon, Australia, Greece, many places around the world are having massive fires similar to ours. And for the past 9 months, I've been pouring into everything I can read on fire and fire mitigation and all of that. So I'm free to discuss like anything to do with energy, but one other thing is, if you're not nervous when you're talking, you need to be replaced by someone who is nervous.
My name is Ian Hodges. So I'm with Responsible Markets, and we've actually been working on energy stuff since NextEra, when NextEra came in and tried to buy the utility. I was involved with the Consumer Advocates Office and trying to figure out what is the impact on the community and the significance of the NextEra merger. It's basically making very short and very long process decision those equivalent. So that's easy to justify. And after that, I was actually involved in a group that was looking to actually acquire the utility, HEI, and actually make the holding company a benefit corporation, so that they would actually have to sort of more interest in just the shareholders.
You hear him okay?
You can, there we go. How about this? Okay. Anyway, but what I want to talk about tonight is we have an example of Molokai. When a lot of us were at the energy conference earlier today, and you hear all these state leaders that was there, they were all kind of talking about Molokai. Molokai is a great example of also what Molokai did. And I wasn't there when they were doing it. I did watch some of the PUC interactions and we can look at Molokai and some other stuff. But it's interesting to watch when the community gets involved and actually is successful, then everybody wants to take credit for it. Right? Up until that point, they actually had to get involved in lots of, it wasn't easy to get where they were to where they are now. But when you actually are successful, when you fight the fights you have to do, and you have people from the governor on down, and singing your praises. But one of the main things I want to talk about is we as a community figure out what we want to do. One of the questions is how are we going to pay for it? And with the wildfires, one of the things that actually happened was that a lot of people know is that HEI's credit rating went from investment grade, one of the highest grades, down to junk bond status because of all the liabilities it is. And when that happened, the cost of capital for their fund all the things they were doing went way up. And electric utilities are a capital intensive business. You need to have access to cheap capital. So there's a whole process in the legislature where they had a thing where they want to securitize rate base, which basically means basically means sort of taking all the bills that we pay and putting on a netter charge onto it, and then using that to kind of either pay for improvements, pay for rebuilding, also placing liabilities. And one of the things about utilities, if you're not Henry Curtis or any other people, is that a lot of things that the legislators actually, when the bill that people introduced was in the Senate, it had language in it that basically meant that all these costs would be borne by Maui County alone, which would have been basically upwards of $5 billion that we'd be paying into Great Rivers, which we already have some of the, Maui County already has the highest rates in the country that we've done with that. And, one of the issues is, it was just this sort of arcane language that if you don't know what it means, then you don't know what it means. And so that bill passed through to the House, and the House members eventually sort of figured it out, and a lot of things happened. But basically, what the main point is that for the utility, the reason why they had such good credit rating was because if you get into all possible pay your electric bill, people pay their electric bill. I think that because you want to have your lights on, you want to work in function your house. So if you get all possible pay, you're going to pay it. And so therefore, that sort of source of funds is pretty stable. So if you float bonds, you have this money coming in, it's a pretty low cost, pretty low risk, therefore low cost source of capital. And now the utility situation it doesn't have access to that capital anymore, or it's having a very hard time accessing it. And so one of the groups that was at the energy conference with people from KIUC, and they were talking about when they first took over the utility there and turned into a cooperative, they had very high electric rates, and now their electric rates are the lowest in the state. And one of the things they did, it actually cost them about $250 million to acquire the assets of this investor-owned utility, and they got most of their money actually from the federal government, or from basically loan guarantees, and also from the National Rural Utility Cooperative Finance Program. And those kind of resources are also available to this community. So one of the things to also consider is because of the wildfires and because of the impact, obviously there's a massive impact on the West Maui community, and there's this big impact on the utility. And because of that, the utility is in a situation that it wasn't in before. And so they can't finance things the way they used to. And they're trying to figure out how to do that. And so there's an opportunity for our community to actually step in and access sources of capital that the utility can't. And that can not only be the source that I already mentioned, also the other group that can get IUC access to money was from the USDA Rural Utilities Service. And between them, so far they've accessed maybe almost $80 million from those groups. And the other thing we also have is our county actually has a very good bond rating. There's ways to actually float county bonds. There can be ways to actually have, county can actually buy the utility, cooperative, a bunch of other options. The main thing the main point I want to make is that right now where the utility stands is the markets now are kind of closed to them. And so they're not, status quo is no longer an option. So that's one of the things we have to look at is, as a community, if the utility doesn't have access to capital, what can we do? And if we actually are the ones who raise capital, what do we want in exchange for that? And so that's kind of the basic thing I want to talk about. And I think the other thing too about it is that if you're going back to Molokai, for example, if you look at Molokai, obviously Molokai is a smaller population than that, but when the community actually does come together and actually teach themselves as well as Molokai did, and you sort of understand all these terms, understand kind of what's going on, and like Kenny was saying, if the community comes to the PUC, to the consumer advocates, to the governor, to the legislature, and says, we know how this works, here's how we'd like to do it, here's how we like to pay for it. From a public point of view, I think it's very difficult for those entities to kind of come back and say, we're not really going to what we do. Particularly given the fact that the utility right now is kind of stuck as far as its access to data and things like that. So that's that's the main thing I want to say is that there are ways for us as a community to access capital, and actually, bottom line is we probably have better ways to access capital than utilities. So that's something to look at.
Brings it back to me. We'll open it to discussion just about 5 minutes here. For those of you who just arrived, if you do want to make comments or questions, then we'll have a chance for everyone to do that. The microphone. Hi. And you can, if you want to write a question, you can also write it on a card. They're available there. But to answer if you don't want to, put your face behind a microphone. Or you can, just start a list of those who want to speak as well. We'll call out in order in a minute to answer it. And then I want to encourage discussion in a respectful way, obviously. We are going to allow 4 minutes until we ding. It'll be a 30-second warning, and then ding, you're done, and then the panelists will have a chance to respond, and then you'll have a chance to respond back, and then panelists will respond one more time, and then we'll move on, and that's a little deep for discussion, and we'll try to do that. I want to be, I don't like the police county system is that we never get a chance to actually discuss. So I think we can have some discussions to maybe move things forward. Because we want to hear from you. This is a community meeting. This isn't about me. This isn't about any of us. We just want to present. And we've been meeting thinking about what to do next. And KIUC, of course, which is a Hawaii something powerful. I didn't exactly. Does that stand for Ryan?
Hawaii Island Utility Cooperative.
So. Ryan also meets with us. Yeah. You're great. Cool. Neat to meet you all. So we're trying to figure out what Hawaii did, and then we can do that here. And that's what I'm sort of talking about. But my thought and solution is that can we have a co-op here? I guess there's basically 3 ways the power company can be owned. It can be owned by investors who are for profit and therefore have to make a profit, which means they do things for profit which may not be for the good of the people or for the good of the environment. That they try to save money or to hold money. Anyway, the second way is the county could own or government could own utility, municipal utility, which I think the county has enough on its plate right now, and they may also have some liability in the fires, so that's probably not what we were thinking best, but we want to also hear from all of you. The co-op model is something we're thinking of, and Ian was great to talk about the best ways of financing that. He's kind of, to me, he's kind of our finance guy. He knows about money and politics. And there's a number of funds that are available, and as he said, they go to bankruptcy court if you have a co-op ready to go, and you might end up being the ones as a community to run the power and take back our own power, figure out how we want to do it. Basically, do sort of what Molokai has done, maybe a little different. We do Maui Island, Molokai had the own system out, and now you want most of it's privately owned, so I don't know if that. Anyway, those are questions. We're just trying to figure all this out. We've been meeting a lot of great people here who have so much experience in how this works, and we also want input from the community in general, so we can assess the wisdom of the work. So that's really all I want to say. I want to thank all the panelists for their time. All the Maui Energy meeting today. A lot of you have too. It's been a long day. We do need to get out of here at 8:45 here. We're close to about a million contract. Other than that, we can go as long as possible at 8:45. For those who came late, we are live streaming on Facebook, so it'll be recorded. And we're going to do issues and solutions now as you all come up and ask any questions. Who's first on the list there, Julie? No.
Aloha, good evening. Do I do it this way?
Sure.
The audience? Can you hear me without this?
Yeah.
Great. I'm Professor Alan Trapner. I am one of the founders of the original group. And then we did the United Nations, the first international conference on the United Nations in Scotland. I was tasked to do the following. Identify all the energy options on this planet for mankind in compatibility with the planet itself. We have made a kind of a Magna Carta about that at the UN conference. Hundreds of countries came together, representatives, NGOs. It was pretty amazing to me what we did. At the time of Earthly, I did something very unique. We created a nonprofit incubator called Green to Gold. It is the oldest existing continuously operating incubator on the planet. We invented our way into the mess of pollution and all this stuff. We can invent our way out of it. And so we wanted to foster sustainable green green economy. That was the premise of what we're doing, to make good green jobs, give careers, give hope to everybody, and take the problem of climate change and mitigate it and reduce it, eliminate it, and at the same time cause what I'm trying to do here is kickstart, jumpstart a green economy, a second economy that balances tourism and all the deficits of tourism and gives us a whole new model here. And that's what I've been doing in the United States and around the world and working with the President of the United States and governors and mayors. We have a new model. And this was raised about the issue of for-profit or nonprofit. We incubate both for-profits and nonprofits. They have wonderful synergy and interactions and symbiotic activities that help one another. But what I'm doing for Maui, what I want to bring here, what I want to jumpstart is a clean tech micro manufacturing hub. And here's the goal: local economic development, a whole new model. We shouldn't be buying panels from Asia, wind turbines from Europe. We should be building them here on bio-based economy with recycled, reusable materials, all the things. We're blessed with indigenous energy. It's unbelievable on this island. From the oceans and the sun and wind and bio-based and everything we should do. And that's why I'm trying to convince you folks to think about a micro-based hub here that will create new products, create new jobs, create the energy that we want to have that's clean and green. Dump fossil fuel dependence, stop shipping money out to buy stuff from profit-making companies from around the world. Let's do it here. Let's have a local green economy. If you're interested in that, I have literature about that. I would love to help you folks do this. Is something I've been doing for 54 years. Thank you very much.
Just to summarize, Alex, you have about this here. Organizations we when you're with green, you want to help clean tech, micro manufacturing hub, make it here, bio-based recycling materials and so on. Got it?
And make your own energy out of your own technology.
Make your own energy out of your
Local
own tech.
economy, a local green economy from Maui, a second economy.
Thank you. Other comment? Okay, next one up. Thank you, Alan. One minute. Wait till you get that for that. That's a good later for you. Yeah. Yeah, the one here, you want to use our microphone that works?
It's not working? Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
So the good news is we are doing some of that was just talked about. And I wanted to share with you some of the information that those of you who didn't have $500 to attend the conference today didn't hear. And thank you for those of you who did. And I've got a lot of comments about a presentation that my husband Bob King. So my name's Kelly King. I am your former council member, running for council again, but I'm here as the Vice President of Pacific Biodiesel, and I wanted to share with you something really exciting that just happened. One of the things that we've been asking for, and Joshua Cooper, who's our Officer of Sustainability and Innovation, has heard me talk about this for, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, that we have to, when we're making these choices in the community, we have to compare apples to apples. And for the longest time, what we've been dealing with on the biodiesel side, a lot of you know that we take the used cooking oil, all of the used cooking oil that we can get our hands on in the state of Hawaii, all of the grease trap material, make it into clean renewable fuel, and now we're doing agriculture and showing that regenerative agriculture can work. But the one thing that was missing in the comparison between EVs and biodiesel was the life cycle analysis. And that has finally been done, unbeknownst to us, a cohort at USC, University of Southern California, decided to work on this. And then after a conversation with Jeff Michelina from Blue Planet, they decided to specifically work on the life cycle analysis of biodiesel buses versus electric buses in the state of Hawaii, so for our state. They just released the report. They're working on doing a paper to release internationally. But I wanted to share with you some of the specifics that came out of that. That biodiesel buses demonstrate a substantial reduction in environmental impact, consuming 48% less energy and 89% less water compared to their electric counterparts. So that's if you look at the entire life cycle and you look at how the batteries are made and not recycled and all of the things that happen in the life cycle of electric vehicles, and the fact that our grid is powered by, as was said earlier, gasoline mostly, and where we're at. And this study is specific to how we're doing biodiesel. So it's as important, and I'm sure Molokai knows this, it's as important how you do something as what you do. So this would not be the same comparison everywhere across the state, but it's, if you look at our grid and how electricity is made. And then the other specifics that came out of this is biodiesel buses emit 41% fewer greenhouse gases and present a 7% lower total cost of ownership. So those are the things that are not looked at, because even the EPA refused to do this kind of study, saying all we care about is the tailpipe emissions. So they're back there looking at the fact that nothing comes out of the tailpipe and ignoring the entire life cycle of what happens when you make an EV vehicle and you run your, especially in the state of Hawaii, and we run our buses on the electricity the way we make it here versus the way we make biodiesel locally. So the other thing I wanted to say, since I have an opportunity, is just to thank a lot of the people in this room I've been working with for decades. Henry Curtis, I think you joined Life of the Land the year before we started Pacific Biodiesel, and we worked together to prevent the Blue Earth organization from importing 100 million gallons of palm oil that was devastating the forests in Indonesia. That was a big win for us together, and we were a lot smaller back then. But Henry pointed to us and he said, and this was one of the most encouraging things we got, why we're still here 30 years later. He said, if you guys weren't here doing what you're doing on as small a scale as you are, they would get away with this because there would be no alternative. There would be no alternative inside. And then I know I'm out of time, but I also want to thank Dan Sullivan. A lot of you don't know that he was with, he made such a big impact on KIUC that we now have a contract with them. And I know you left before we got that contract, but you worked on that for a long time. And seeing what's happening with boots on the ground and what a difference it makes to produce energy in a circular economy model where everything stays here. That is very rare. There's a couple of other communities that actually next month I'm going to be speaking in June at the Northern New England Energy Conference, because we have the same issues that they do.
Thanks, Kelly. So, I think I got it right. We did see biodiesel, but you're running for office again. If you said that. And you wanted to talk about the life cycle analysis of electric buses versus biodiesel buses. So there were 48% less energy, 89% less water, 41% less greenhouse gases, and 7% lower cost of ownership for a biodiesel bus compared to an electric bus. Based on now with that.
Solution, why are we not running our buses on biodiesel? That's that person all the time.
The circular economy was another thing I heard you mention before. Yes? Any other comments from the council? Okay.
And actually, I wanted to mention Jane too, because she was making a push. Thank you.
Okay, next person.
I'm a concerned, probably resident, and if we put together a PowerPoint, so we have on the laptop, we it's queued up over there on that field to the left. And there's also a sign up email list that you can receive this PowerPoint. And this is all about Maui's energy autonomy and specifically about hydrogen fuel for vehicles and for solar concentrator systems for producing both electricity and hydrogen. So the PowerPoint slide goes, the slide series goes through and identify two particular companies that have produced market-ready, they can be ordered at any time. These are portable or mobile hydrogen fueling stations. And so I propose investigating bringing this to Maui for not only pure hydrogen for vehicles who run on hydrogen only, but also for hydrogen on-demand systems, which would include heavy equipment, all types of diesel trucks, buses, ships, boats that run on diesel, because with the hydrogen on-demand systems, reduce the amount of diesel needed by injecting hydrogen into the burning process. And this can all be seen in the PowerPoint series. But the interesting about hydrogen is, I mean, this is raining leaflets here. But hydrogen so happens that solar can be produced not only by giant solar farms, but also solar concentrator or big mirror systems. So in addition to solar concentrator systems, they've identified a company that has invented a Newton battery, a gravity mechanical system for storing excess energy. But as far as the local backing, I find for hydrogen on-demand and hydrogen fuel for vehicles, well, Hawaii Gas, Hawaii Gas has a pilot, you see the Hawaii Gas technician smiling over there. He said they have a fleet conversion pilot program, a hydrogen pilot program. So between them, the Hawaii Gas, and the Hawaii State Energy Office, I find that there's strong local backing for investigating hydrogen as a auxiliary fuel to, especially to mitigate costs as Maui goes into the rebuilding of the Lahaina. Because engines that run on injected hydrogen have their fuel augmented with injected hydrogen. Not only use less fuel, but their engines get cleaner because the hydrogen works out the hydrogen helps clean the engine. The final slide in the program, is for overtime.
30 more seconds.
Okay. There's a quotation from one of Maui's movers and shakers, Chef Gordon, co-owner of a kitchen down in Wailea, a humble market kitchen. Is that visualize what you want the history books to say, then you can make it happen the way you want it to happen. So I invite you to pick up one of these flyers. And thank you very much for holding up right next to you.
Thank you. Is it John?
Mark Nolan Johnson.
Mark Nolan Johnson. Thank you. I just want to summarize a little bit, and then we'll give this another discussion for you. Let's say something. So you're talking about hydrogen fuel as a fuel source and a solar concentrator to make hydrogen. Hydrogen on demand was, I guess, some system to inject into diesel as a fuel. Hawaii Gas has a pilot program about hydrogen. We want to investigate hydrogen, and we should visualize our future if we want that to be our future. Can you catch that, Mark? And look at your PowerPoint. Right. That's what I got.
I'd like to raise 2 points. First, pick on Air Force Base, a few years ago, maybe a decade at this point, used solar panels to create electricity for a small project, and when they didn't need the electricity, the device was able to take the solar and turn it into hydrogen. So that technique has been tried at Hickam Air Force Base. Different technique probably than yours, but it takes solar and it creates either electricity or hydrogen by a switch. The second point is, Hawaii Gas is often credited with having 15% hydrogen in their gas pipes. But they did that 50 years ago and have not done anything since except write about it.
Other points? Sources. Biofuel, no, hydrogen, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm having a few points only. One is we very often use the word electricity, some people talk about energy, they're not necessarily the same. And if we're not planning, I think we should be aware, are we going for 100% non-fossil fuel electricity, 100% non-fossil fuel energy? We have to be careful in our planning, what we're talking about, and keep that in mind, always in our planning. Because oftentimes confused, for example, one of the size electricity, we have a lot of liquid fuels, going to cars, no electricity produced per se. We have to make sure that we're doing both properly, making sure that we get lower fossil fuel dependence on electricity production, and also lower fossil fuels in vehicles. We can do that. Electric vehicles, solar would be a substitute. Second item, so many of the decisions that are made on Maui are actually being made in Honolulu. I'm going to cite 4 entities that contribute to this issue. We have nothing really comparable here on the island. One is certainly Hawaiian Electric, and even now, they've now dissolved Maui Electric. It really is no longer a separate entity. It's now all Hawaiian Electric. Decisions, major decisions are being made there. Some of the implementation going on here. The second one is the PUC itself. With their meetings all in Honolulu, rarely, if ever, have they haven't, 30, 40, 50 years, held a meeting on Maui to ask the public what they want, or to be best is to take one of their dockets and do a public meeting here on Maui. The third one is the consumer advocate. Supposed to protect the consumers. They've never had a meeting on Maui. I called up several years ago, talked to the consumer advocate, said, we don't have any money in our budget to go to neighbor islands. And fourthly is the legislature. State legislature passes lots of laws, they set up the PUC, they do other types of things. We need to be able to get control of some of the decision making on this island. Molokai has drafted, said we're going to do it ourselves, we're going to find ways to do it. We know we have to interact with the other entities, but we have to do it for the benefit of Molokai. Maui Island should be able to do the same thing. We should have an energy commissioner with staff, with technical competence, to be able to make decisions on various things that need to be done. That leads to the third item. When we talk about energy, we really talk about a whole bunch of different things. We talk about energy, producing the electricity or the energy, the source, the distribution, the rate paying, the storage. All of these are big issues and big problems that need to be all looked at to see how they dealt with the work with each other, and overall how we do to benefit of the people on Maui Island. And as part of that, once decisions get made, we have to be able to help the average consumer on Maui. It has to be a much more proactive mechanism. So if you go to a homeowner and go to the house and do an energy audit, what can they do? Indicate the decision. Right now, Hawaiian Electric has a whole bunch of different roof panels, TV panels, with all kinds of. The average consumer has no idea which ones are really going to benefit them, and most people need help. And that's not just individuals in homes, it's also businesses. Whether it be a shopping center, an independent store, whatever it is, warehouse, condominium buildings, all of these entities need somebody who's going to reach out to them proactively, not wait for a phone call, but actually contact the head of a condominium. Say, we'd like to help you reduce your energy consumption, get the right mix of sources, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, we have to consider, I think think this is really about how we make the transition. We have been doing what we will do in the future. Who's going to make those decisions? How can we get the power away from Honolulu, get some home rules, ready them to make these decisions here locally? These are major issues that need to be discussed. Unfortunately, many of them are highly technical. Our county council, which is charged with making decisions for us, does not have the expertise, nor do they have the staff at the county building to make it. We need to develop a competent entity and here in Maui that's working on behalf of the residents of Maui. Thank you.
So Jack, thank you, and one other thing.
I was here in 1970, the first Earth Day of Maui, helped design the first Earth Day of Maui. So it's been a long time, and we still haven't finished that road yet.
So I got 100% energy versus electricity, make sure we have our definitions right, decisions made in Honolulu, ECO, PUC, consumer advocate, legislature, home rule, that's important, local control, maybe our own energy commissioner, help the Maui consumers or individual or business, and how we make the transition from our home rule. That's it. Okay. Any comments from the distinguished panel? That one.
Genesis. Just think something, it's the micro manufacturing, that we make it here. All the green products, technology, solutions.
Yeah, check the thing, we'll make sure it is right. Thank you, Alan.
There are different approaches used in different places. Obviously, the Molokai model works fantastically on Molokai. Oahu has an office of climate change and whatever that's part of the charter, whatever. Maui used to have an energy czar who may not have been the greatest, many people believe, but nevertheless had an energy czar. Different places have different ways of moving forward. As a Oahu resident, and I'm there not because I like Oahu, but because that's where the power is, and that's where we have to influence. But Maui has to, for yourself, build the mechanism yourself for where you want to go to, and not be grabbing somebody else's model that works somewhere else.
Right, so can we do it our own way? Next. Okay, the podium's open for those. I'd love to hear from people who may not want to tell us their story about what they know, maybe what questions you might have for people who really, I was thinking of it more the other way around, that we hear from you and we can ask questions and we hear what you want to call. How do you think we should finance this? You think we should try to take capital and power? What does resilient power mean? Should we try to underground all the lines, even though it costs millions and billions of dollars to do that? And how important is that? And I was very interested in we need talks, and the rates are going to go up no matter what. But the bills that went through the legislature that didn't go through, going to take all of the costs of Hawaii Electric and put it on Maui County, not the rest of the state. They were going to pay ring fences so that we would be all responsible, including their liability. They just gave raises to everybody. Now you're going to talk. Great.
I'm going to make 2 points. One is picking up on what Dick said, confusing energy and electricity. There's often a confusion about PICO versus HEI. PICO is a regulated utility. HEI is a holding company that has nothing to do with being regulated. PICO profits go up to HEI. The profits can be used for shareholders, to save money, to invest, or to give raises to HEI executives. If the money is not used for HEI executives, then it would go to shareholders or something else, but it is beyond the utility. It's in the holding company. And therefore, how the holding company spends its money has nothing to do with the regulation of people. Second,
It's not accessible.
yeah, it's not. It's the second major issue that is often confusing is the utility spends a lot of money building structures that may have 50 or 100-year life expectancies. They buy fuel, they produce electricity, they give it to customers, and only then is the dribble of funds coming in to cover all of their costs. So the utilities across the country are capital intensive, that borrow funds that then are slowly paid back by ratepayers. And that's crucial to understand.
Because the value of their stock is so low now, because the value of their stock went down, right?
If they were healthy, they could issue more stocks. If they were healthy, they could issue more bonds. If they're not as healthy, they can work on selling properties. They can work on not flying people to different islands. They can work on doing various kinds of financial stuff, which is, I don't want to go into it because we see confidential documents and I don't want to cross the line there. But it's harder for them to raise the funds now that would be then slowly paid back by ratepayers. And so the financing, and I am hardly the expert on financing. Financing is a massively complex issue that the PUC and the consumer advocate deal with.
From Maui electric now, people Maui electric control.
Thank you. I wanted to go into that. After immediately hit on Kauai, the legislature passed a bill that said, basically, a cost, the utility operates on cost. If you cause a cost, you have to cover the cost. So, because the islands are not connected, Maui costs are paid by Maui residents, Molokai costs are paid by Molokai residents, Lanai costs are paid by Lanai residents. That raises two separate issues. One, HECO attempted to, at some level, combine, say that, why should an office that does something for Maui, for HECO, duplicate something that's done by HECO, duplicate something that's done by ELCO? What if we combined what is done in all the different entities? And we might put some people on Maui, we might put some people on the Big Island, but it's a one company concept to make the company more efficient. But it is still three companies at the regulatory level. Following Hurricane Iniki, the legislature passed a law that said, if there's a disaster like Iniki, and if you try to have one island pay for the entire cost of that, and if the rates would go up by more than 15% paid over a 10-year period, then like-minded utilities can share in the costs. Now it happens that Iniki's impact was only 14-point-something%, so the law was never actually used then. But for some bizarre reason, the legislature passed a cap that goes the other way. It says, if you decide that you really should spread it out among all like-minded utilities, and those like-minded utilities have an impact that is greater than 15% over a 10-year period, then the law doesn't apply. So it's only if the cost would rise more than 15% over 10 years on your island, but less than 15% over 10 years on like-minded utilities, that you can spread the cost across the islands. That law has never been implemented. I mean, it's never come up in use. But inherent in that is, one, you have to figure out what the total liability is for HECO, which is unknown. And two, you have to subtract from that all the offsets they get, all the grants they get, because it's not the gross impact, it's the net impact. And we won't know what the costs are for several years. So what Nico and Kiko are doing is they've set up a regulatory account that they're shoving all these different cost factors in that ratepayers will not be liable for until 2026. And at that point, we'll discover what the total cost is and how the allocation is to the different items.
If the commission approves cost recovery.
Correct. The utility, the commission can say they don't get a cent of it.
I'm curious to know if we have any other, do we have any competing electrical companies with HECO, or is that the only one we got? So how is that, that's a monopoly, and therefore it's not for the people don't get a choice. There's not a choice, we don't have choice here. So how do we get choice?
HECO is a monopoly, but not a geographic monopoly, which means that anybody can form a utility on HECO's turf, build renewable energy generators, build transmission lines, and be their own utility. Anybody can do that. Now, the trick is that if you there are technical issues, but you very soon would wind up being regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. So you're not escaping that. But this group right now could say that in West Maui, we're going to form a microgrid. It's going to have only renewable energy. We're going to put in lines. We might say that we can separate from distances by putting electricity in vehicles and moving them and unloading somewhere else, whatever. But you can form your own utility here. And that has been something that's been around for decades. The problem is forming a utility, the state regulation, federal regulation, the taxes, the laws, how you operate a grid, how you make it reliable, how you make it resilient, means you have to have some real technical ability and a team, because no one person can do it. And money, but KIUC got money from the USDA and the National Rural Electric Cooperatives Association funding organization. So you can get the money, but keep in mind that when citizens decided to get out of the electric industry, there were a utility in Connecticut, they wanted to be only in telecom, and they wanted to get out of electricity, so they want to sell all the different components. And Hawaii Island Utility Co-op formed, and so there was an arrangement for citizens to sell the Hawaii Electric Division to KIUC, and it went before the Public Utilities Commission. The PUC rejected the sale, and therefore citizens had to renegotiate with KIUC and have an entire separate PUC proceeding, which allowed the sale to go through. And KIUC went through some very rocky early years, so they are really great now. But if you looked at them when they first formed, they were on extremely shaky ground.
So I put it all the people, including you, can be, so it won't be so rocky.
I need to clarify one thing. If HECO is a willing seller, then I could participate in that. But if HECO is not a willing seller, it would compromise our independence at the PUC, and we could not go near that.
Is there a comment?
Thanks.
Yes.
Almost 2 months, right? My name is Ryan Hurley. I'm a community attorney. I represent various organizations, mainly people trying to stop stuff, I guess. The good guys, I like to say. But Henry knows one of my clients is the Huku Community Association. I represent them in the energy equity docket, and I think they, as you guys are familiar with, they challenged the Napumakani wind farm, which is the largest land-based turbines that sit just 1,800 feet away from the elementary school. And they spent years challenging this project, over 10 years, and they failed. And then when they went to build it, the community opposed it in various ways, and over 200 arrests happened. And I note that because I think that, and I want to thank Henry Curtis and Life of the Land for all the work they did, and the many meetings we sat through, and it was a tough loss. And if you drive to the North Shore in Oahu today, you can't miss it, right? And people always ask, like, what's the big deal? And my answer is simple. It says, just go to the elementary school and go to the playground, and you tell me what the big deal is. You don't have to explain. You just have to go to the elementary school and say, do you want your child playing under a turf? Oh, by the way, the elementary school is the hurricane shelter. No one knows how that's going to work out. But my point being is their civil disobedience is how the Kuku community ultimately tried to challenge that, and it didn't work. I think that we gained a lot from that. I think that one of the reasons we're sitting here today, I think one of the reasons Molokai Clean Energy is having the impact they have, because of the sacrifices those community members made. And it was, I don't know how many nights was it, like 15 nights? How many? It was a lot of nights that, it was a lot of tears, and it was a rough go. But I think what Molokai is doing is showing you there's an alternative route, right? So there's the civil disobedience on one side, and then there's working within the confines of the system. Thanks to Henry, I'm a St. Louis grad, and I gotta say, Henry, man, throwing us Oahu boys under the bus is not cool. I mean, our Tacomas are not as high as yours over here on Maui, but we still got plenty of them. But thanks to those sacrifices, I think that there's an opportunity here to change this. And so I just want to say, like, it's really, we can have all these technical conversations, but really it's about boots on the ground of the community taking charge and having the courage to say, I won't say a bad word, but to say, like, this is enough. This is not going to work. And the final thing I want to note is, on Oahu, we shut down the AES coal plant. How many years ago? 2 years ago? A year and a half ago? 2 years ago? I don't believe in coal. I think it's a huge mistake. I think we shut it down at the wrong time. It cost us a lot of money. I also think that we have to acknowledge that the AES coal plant sat on 6 acres of land. To replace all the energy that AES coal plant made, it's going to take 3,000 to 3,500 acres of land, right? I believe that Hawaii's transition to 100% clean energy will be the largest shift in land use that we've seen since the Great Mahela, or the plantation era. Either you choose, but we're going to shift huge amounts of our land. What were the numbers we were hearing today for biofuel? 2.5 million acres, if we want to use the same. I don't know Henry, do you have a number on solar panels? But it's got to be 20 or 30,000 acres of solar panels to do it, right? So the point is when we shift from clean energy to renewable energy, it's a land use discussion. And that makes it a community discussion. So everybody in these communities needs to have a voice and a say. And I don't think the HECO or even the PUC or even the consumer advocate, who I like, but they're an economics thing. It's not about community input. They're not going to say, give it to you. You're going to have to take it. And so you got to be strong. You got to be like people who, and the sisters being real nice out here. It wasn't that easy. It wasn't like HECO was like, oh, we'd love to have multi-clean energy if we bid into this. It was a fight. And it's going to be a fight here. But I think we can do it. I hope that the community, I'm from Oahu, it's not going to be my fight. I got enough fights over there. We got a 7 million gallon wave pool coming in. If anybody's interested in that. No. But you guys are going to have to do it. And I think you can do it. And I hope KOC helps. I hope that we can all get working on this. But I think it's going to happen. The change is going to happen. So do you want 20,000 acres of solar? What are you going to do? It's your choice. But so I just note that we be technical and be financed and everything, but we just got to show up and make our voices heard and talk to our council members, talk to our governors. I miss Green's number.
I have it.
Hook me up, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I think I can summarize. I would like to say that when I was speaking to electronics engineer or electrical engineer, said there were enough solar panels and enough roofs and parking lots to have enough solar for our current needs. So some of those acres could go on existing infrastructure. It's not like you're taking a bag land. I wasn't really clear. And Henry, thank you so much. And I know you can't help in certain circumstances. And my understanding, though, And for everybody here, that if they go bankrupt, then they might be given to a co-op, and that's why we're moving for the power co-op in place. Potentially, in case that happens, we could potentially take back our own power. They don't have to be a willing seller when they're bankrupt, or decide to give it to a co-op, which is totally ready to go with experts, who know what they're doing, know who are here. Is that correct? Seeing nods. I would like to know from just the audience if people here want to take back the power by a show of hands, if you want the community to have more control of this power. Anyone not want that? Put your hands up.
We're talking, so
Do you want to take back our power?
Oh, yeah,
We have to have a competent group to do that.
Of course, we have to have a competent group. Part of the people are here, and anyone who would like to join us, please let us know, let my staff know. If you'd like to join us, our next meeting is June 14th at 9 a.m. and we'd like that. We have mostly a bunch of two women, they're mostly old white guys, I think, right? Yeah, no, Ryan joined us. So anyway, we want more diversity. We basically want more community input, and I don't know much electricity. I'm getting a real education here. So, Kelly, what are questions then?
So the group you're talking about, separate from the CAAC? Is a different group? Okay. So I don't know if everybody knows that Genesis kept the CAAC going. So when I started the Climate Action, Resilience, and Environment Committee on the council, I brought some community members together in a community, from the community, and it was the Climate Action Advisory Committee. There was a committee to advise the Climate Action Committee on the council. And it was various people, but it ended when I stepped down from the council last time. Genesis kept it going, and there's some subcommittees of that. Like there's transportation, there's agriculture, there's sustainable tourism. I think one of the reasons why it's hard to have a conversation in a room like this is because there are people with those various interests, and we did breakout sessions and focus on those different areas. Then you will get that level of expertise and interest that you're talking about. But I also want to say, because it was Dick Mayer that said there's no expertise on the council. And the ironic thing was that I was on the council and I was the expert on renewable fuels and local production, but I couldn't talk about it because it was deemed a conflict of interest. I had somebody in the community that accused me of conflict of interest. You're supposed to be able to participate in discussion, but you're not supposed to be able to vote on things that affect your financially. So that's what I tried to do, but I was actually accused of, or made to not even talk about it. So when you're on the council, you don't have to necessarily be an expert on everything. You can be an expert on one or two things, but you have to know who the experts are in the community. That's what's really important. And you have to listen to those people. So what we need the council to do is to commission a group like that, and maybe with the subcommittees, and then listen to them when they come forward. Because we tried that with the mayor's office, and we didn't get action. We tried that with, we tried going to the state level, and we don't get represented. So we need a group here that will insist on some of the issues being talked about and considered. Our council member Dave Johnson, who's in the back there, has a proposal to underground all utility lines. He cannot get a hearing because one of the other council members who runs that committee won't hear it. I mean, even if you think it's too expensive, it's worth talking about. It's worth considering. So having a citizens commission of people who can talk about these things and bringing the experts into those bodies to be able to then respond to the council, I think is going to be really important. But you have to have a council who's going to listen. And we don't have a majority right now. We did at one time, but we don't have a majority on the council, and that's one of the reasons I'm running again. So think about how, if we want a county entity, it's got to have some power. The power of the CAAC was that I listened to them, I met with them, I brought their concerns and their ideas to the committee. But that committee doesn't exist right now, so we have to bring that committee back. County Rollins Finance is there with the council as well. But that's how you get the community's opinions and the community's information and the community's desires to manifest itself at the county level. So that it's great to talk about having a county entity, but the council has to empower that entity. It's not working at the administrative level. That's what I want to say. It's just really, you get a better discussion at the council, you get more entities coming forward. And also I wanted to say to Ryan, I don't know who said that 2.5 million for biofuels. I don't think it was my husband, but thinking about,
It was a
okay.
Caitlin guy,
Oh, yeah, I don't think that figure is right, but what we're talking about in land use is trying to return a lot of land use to agriculture. We used to have agriculture here in a much bigger way. And there was a progressive council that, I sat on for 2 terms that took a lot of money out of the tourism bucket that we were putting in and putting into agriculture. Because that's what we want. We want to get back to that. That's us here and now. That's not import. Can't import agricultural lands. We're trying to build farmers here, so.
I know we have a lot of other hands.
I really want, well, you don't have to recount everything, but I just want to thank Genesis because he kept the CAAC going. It's still meeting. It still has subcommittees. It just needs some teeth.
We keep complaining anyway. Well, we have enough time. I would really love to hear from people who haven't spoken before. And so you have your hand up, so I'm going to go for you. Let us grab a mic here and tell us your name and whatever you want to say. 4 minutes.
Aloha, I'm Candace Shaw. I actually have a couple questions, hopefully for the PUC members and former PUC members. If we were to see a bankruptcy, how would that differ from a traditional negotiated sale, which could take a handful of years, is my understanding, if it was a negotiated sale? How long would it take to go through a bankruptcy purchase if we were to move towards a co-op? And what would that look like?
I asked Hawaiian Electric that question, and they said that nobody has come before them with a proposal. So they're not going to go out into the community and say, we want somebody to buy some part of us. But nobody has come to them and said, we want to buy something. The second group, through the bankruptcy, you have to keep in mind that as far as I can figure out, no bankruptcy court in the United States has ever taken a utility and popped out a co-op. Because what happens is inside the bankruptcy court, the major venture capitalists who have sunk their money into buying cheap stock and buying discounted insurance debt and other things, then wind up wanting a windfall. And you get a windfall by maximizing the return to yourself. So for example, with PG&E, the second bankruptcy, the venture capitalists who grabbed it took so much money that the victims got less than they were entitled to. But as long as the bankruptcy court allows a co-op, we should be ready. But I would think the most practical way is to actually approach the utility with a well-developed co-op and say, we want to take this piece, and we have some federal funds to buy it from you, so that you then have the funds to run the rest of your operation, and then go before the PUC. But even if you went the bankruptcy route, you do not escape the PUC, because the bankruptcy court could take years and decide to go with the co-op, but then the PUC would have to approve it, and the PUC could reject it. So no matter how it's done, if you want to transfer ownership of any utility, it needs PUC approval. And I'm leaving in 5 minutes because I don't live on this island.
Aloha tākou, Keoni Kuoha, Niru Makua, originally from Waimanalo, Oahu. I have a comment or sort of some thoughts of the outreach around this work. First of all, I really appreciate that you folks are thinking ahead Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Well, no,
I'm
okay,
a
this is-
true friend, all right? That's how I live
So there's obviously a lot of nuance to this. And when you're asking community to weigh in on things, we're never gonna come from the position of an expert, right? And so my first sort of request is that at some level, we have an assessment of what are the outcomes that our community values most, and in some sort of level of priority, right? Is cost the most important thing for our community? Is climate resilience? Is stability? I live in Maui, our electric goes up regularly, right? And I work from home, so stability would be nice. So those kind of levels of just clear, like, you're living your life. What do you want from your electric? And so on top of that, and maybe utilizing that kind of information, I would love for the experts to give sort of this, these are the priorities, these are the options that make the most sense for those priorities. When I listened to you guys earlier, I heard things in sort of maybe 4 buckets. One is ownership, one related is finance, one is the grid itself, and how extensive that is, and that impacts stability. And then we're talking about the technologies that are going to feed energy into the grid. And I would love to see that information put together in a way that when the Maui community, and by Maui community, I mean full-time residents on Maui, they look at that information, they can understand more clearly what are the choices in front of them. And I feel like that's going to be a more enduring, because looking at the co-op on Kauai, and it's going to have challenges. If that happens here, it may have challenges as well. But if people understand what they're getting into as they're stepping into that, I think it'll be more enduring as a decision as well. So it's just kind of a request, and as well as my appreciation to the work that you guys are doing, and the background work you're doing to make this happen.
Jody? Yeah. So just want to summarize a little bit what Jody said, that outcomes for the community, prioritize them, prioritizing the cost, maybe safety, buckets of ownership, money, grid, production, full-time Maui residents, and the bills are going up all the time. I'm sure have some Mapua, and I think you like the idea of a co-op, but want to make sure it's enduring and understand the struggles that go into it. Did you capture most of that? I get it right? Okay. Okay, he's gonna comment on this, and then we'll get to you. Counting the minute.
Let me speak.
If you speak to him, he's gonna have a comment on him, and then you next. You're next, okay? Thank you.
I'm having a major brain fart right now.
10 to 11, 11 to 12, or 9 to 10.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of going back to your question, which was like, how do we get energy decision-making power? It depends on how badly you want it. Everybody in this room raised their hands when they said they want energy decision-making authority. And that's the exact same thing we said on Monday too. Like, obviously the system that we have right now is not working. People individually keeping tabs on every decision that's being made that's going to impact us, and then going and individually commenting on them. Those individual comments there's no assurance that those are going to be included in the final decision. And so what we understood was like, okay, we need to come with an ask that is just undeniable. We need to have a qualitative information, right? That includes us going to the community and sharing with them, like, okay, what is all our options? How does our grid work? What are we actually paying for on our electric bill? And giving them the information in the exact way that the community says they want it, so that when they give us feedback, it's quality feedback. They're not coming from a place of just like, like they haven't done the myth busting yet. Like, you have a lot of them to do. And then also you need the quantity, right? Like, if you're saying that Maui community is everybody on this island full-time resident, do you have a representative, at least a representative, for all of the different sub-communities across this island in the room giving their mana'o throughout the process. And are all of those people that are in the room or part of that hui willing to go out and access their communities and ask them the questions to make sure you have the quantitative data as well? And so part of the way that we've organized it on Molokai is our hui meets multiple times a month. And we separate it out, we have the first half of the meeting with just Molokai and the second half with all of our resource advisors to make a safe space for community members to say what they gotta say without offending anybody or feeling like we don't want to share them out because we're not energy experts. And then we have meetings that are just dedicated strictly to like getting into the technical weeds and figuring out the questions or the answers that we can bring back to the community. And we have meetings for planning how we're gonna bring it back to the community kind of thing. And then all of our community meetings are only community members. And like this is the importance of having the community groups at the forefront of planning, because you can't just come, set a time, and expect everybody to show up. You really have to meet the community where they're at, and if you're serious about getting broad qualitative data, support, meaningful discussion and feedback from your community. And so that looks like providing meals when people come and show up. Having a keiki activity so their kids can do something while the adults can like focus on getting them. Picking a place that is central to where they are, and maybe you gotta do one in each ahupua'a or each community, depending on what the community wants. Picking times that are convenient for people to show up, not on holidays, not on work days, all those kinds of things. And those all take manpower to organize and manpower or women power to actually do and facilitate and get that information that'll give your voice. And also it takes a lot of effort to take that community voice and advocate for it to BC, to Chiquito, and wherever you can and whenever you can. So if that is what Maui wants as part of like having a voice in the energy planning space, that's a snapshot of what it looks like and what it requires of a community. If you guys would like your own co-op or to like own your own grid, that is a next step level up of commitment from the community. But again, like it's all possible. It just depends on how bad you want it and how much you're willing to put in to organize your community, get that strong community voice and consensus. Make it really hard for Hiko and BC or the consumer advocate to say no to.
Synchronized community involvement and commitment.
It's also going to the community, make it possible for all the parts of the community to participate.
Two down, not just go where you are. Okay.
Do I need a microphone?
Sorry, just flip.
Hi, I'm Carl Friedman. I live in Hiku. About 15 years ago, I worked as a consultant to the county doing water planning, and we went with water plans to Lanai and Molokai and all the different communities here. And so I'm a little familiar with the Molokai passion for care of their island. And I just wanted to say, it's just amazing what has happened on Molokai to bring that community together. And I want to just appreciate and warn how much work had to be involved in that. That is just a phenomenal amount of commitment. And it was made without teeth, but it has a tremendous amount of power because of the process and because of the agreement and the volume. So for this group, I guess the other thing is I'd say about my experience in public meetings in those places, it's really hard for me to imagine the Maui community doing that. And maybe it's possible, but one of the things I heard from that process was they were willing to listen ask other people and go out and get information and come back. So for this group, I think organizing somebody there is really smart about how this process might work and where to start. So for this group to decide we're going to go through that kind of process on Maui, ask, listen, that's so amazing that a community can do that. The other people maybe ask and listen, and when I heard your first list of objectives, none of those things seemed like they could be done with an existing investment-owned utility and PUC group, that particular list of objectives. But the group seems the real objectives might be a big co-op. And so somehow the list of objectives, I don't know if it's representative of what core objective of the group is. But about becoming a co-op, I just wanted to point out one thing. KIUC became a co-op in an environment where the utility was for sale. Citizens Utilities was actively going out and soliciting new ownership. There was no fight. It was negotiations about price and that type of thing. I've been through municipality and co-op battles in other states. It's not pretty. If the utility doesn't want it to happen, it's a much different process. And in that environment, well, it's just different. I guess that's just fair warning. It's more of a fight than negotiating a sale.
So what I caught is you're up in Haiku, and worked on some water plants and had some experience trying to get community involved, and it's hard, and you're not necessarily trusting Maui County, Maui community to do that, and maybe it can. And listening and asking was important here as well, and co-op seems to be important here in the audience perhaps, and the objectives, of course, they could be done by an investor utility maybe, but maybe they're not exactly all defined, I guess, is what you're saying. It might be more aligned with co-op, and utility is not willing, it could be a fight.
I felt like the most important thing I really wanted to do is just pull that whole back and go all the way.
Appreciate that, thank you. Any other comments on the panel?
Thank you, Genesis. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Del Rosario. I'm speaking on my own behalf, so please disregard my These are my thoughts and ideas. What's really important to me is energy equity across all income brackets here in Maui County. And although my primary residence is in Lower Kula, I am a Lanai landowner, and Ellison does not own all of the islands, and we need help with energy in our grid as well. So please include Lanai, don't exclude Lanai. As a community member, I'm open to all ideas, and co-op being one of them, but let's talk more and let's explore. I think it's important that I feel, and I've acknowledged that Hawaiian Electric has failed us as a community. They have failed us in infrastructure investment. We have aging infrastructure. We have inadequate infrastructure. We don't have green infrastructure. We have high rates. We have degradation of our view planes with their poles and their lines. I don't know that they have to go underground, but I'd like them not to be in our view plane. So can you get them low to the ground, or how does that work? I don't know. So let's explore all of these options. I think we have a blank slate, and if we feel like we need to take back our grid, then let's do it. Let's pull together as a community, figure it out. I give you so much praise for what you've done in your leadership on Molokai. I admire what you've done, and anything you can do to help us. I think we have to tell our community we're in a crisis, not just a housing crisis, but an energy crisis. And we're out here the farthest distance from everyone in the middle of the ocean. So part of addressing themselves, helping to address the housing crisis and needs. You know, most people, even at the 100 AMI and below in Maui County, cannot afford to buy photovoltaic panels, battery storage, solar hot water panels, on-demand hot water. You know, they get LED light bulbs. That's what we give them. So I think energy equity is super important to me.
Let me summarize and then Leilani is going to speak to that. Thank you, Michelle. Energy equity was like beginning and end of your comments. The night needs help too, don't exclude. If you heard that, and ECO has definitely failed, as you said, with all the different things you list, like aging, high rates of use, maybe safety, all of that, so many things, right? And yeah, so thank you. Gotta catch it all. Okay.
I just wanted to follow up on my previous comment. I know I just made community-led energy planning sound extremely difficult, and it is a lot of hard work, but there are so many benefits of having the community lead their energy planning. And so two of the main benefits that I thought of when I was hearing your comment was that, one, community-led energy planning is holistic. So it's not just looking at a single energy project to solve a single energy need, right? When the community does it, they want to know everything that is going to be impacted by this project, right? How does this energy project impact our water, our agriculture, our housing? How can we make these energy projects solutions that go beyond energy, you know? And then the other part is that when community is centered in energy planning, the projects immediately become more equitable, more resilient, more sustainable, more aloha island, all of the things that we want out of energy projects. Because this is the way that communities are thinking, right? They're not just thinking about their electric bill, they're thinking about how do we mitigate a disaster? How do we prepare for a disaster? How do we, you know, have long-term solutions that don't involve us like just constantly importing fuel or panels or batteries? Where does it go after the project is done? You know, and although it takes a lot more time to get all of those answers and feedback from the community and from the technical folks too, it's so worth it because the projects that come out of it are just so much more than just an energy project.
Hi, my name's Stacy. I'm a mom of country in Pukalani. I'm not used to speaking like this, but I'm a mom of country in Pukalani. There's many pools right by my house that have just been hopped up with other pools, and this is not uncommon. I tell this to people all the time, and it's just kind of something that we have accepted here. There's a pool on Malcolm Avenue that is continuously falling, that people make jokes about it. I'm happy to hear that Councilmember Johnson has proposed something to underground the line. I want to know who to call. Who do I have to call and complain and tell them to hear this? Because I think I'm new to these community meeting things, but as I've been going, this is one of the smallest groups that I've seen recently, but the telescope meeting was lit. Like, people were there, and people were passionate, people wanted to speak about it because we were informed, it was something that we were told, that we've kind of been shown that we can do something about. And I think these conversations need to start in the Hawaiian community. We need to go to Waiahuli Community Center and ask people there. We need to go to Waiahu and begin those conversations there and get people fired up about it, because this number of people is not going to do any of things, unfortunately. It's just, and the idea of a co-op is appealing. That's why everybody raised their hands. But we just want Hawaiian Electric to be accountable for what they've done and not done. And the idea of giving them some huge payday to line our pockets again so that we can fix what they did just doesn't feel right to me. And so do we find them to the point that they have to go bankrupt and their only option is to sell it to us for the fine? I don't know how any of that stuff works, but I don't think people are going to support giving Hawaiian Electric more money to upload their problems onto us. But I like the idea of us running it. I don't think they should profit anymore. I think that whatever profits they've gotten out of us in the past should be taken back to make up for the stuff they didn't manage. Like, I don't manage my property and it harms someone, I have to pay for it. No one's gonna bail me out, you know? I don't get why they get expected. And then all these ideas are great. I like the idea of having these community planning meetings, but when I hear we have to build another commission and we have to start a coalition and all of these visions, I start to kind of glaze my eyes over and like, I'm here representing my family and none of them are here because everyone wants my kid. And so they all have their own ideas too. And so it's the way these meetings are set up really biased towards a certain community. And I love this idea of having childcare and having food because you see it in our mommy Facebook group all the time that why is my electric bill so high? Is everyone else's electric bill so high? Is it my automated water? Is it my automated electrical meter? And we're having these conversations within our communities. So no one's gonna skip dinner to come to a meeting like this. It's just not easy. Off the top of my head comments, and I'd love to be involved in these conversations more and try to reach our communities where they are because I do think that that's a big portion of this conversation.
Thank you, Stacy, Kukulani. I think the polls are falling down on Maui Avenue and elsewhere, as well as a line down on our, it's just a telecom line on our property.
3 poles holding out the pole.
Right, yeah, it's, so,
So,
yeah.
get with it.
And you
Wrap
want,
it, strap it.
got it. You want people to be accountable and where to give the profit back that they didn't use to make the system more safe and accountable. Right, and, it's like, sounds like you're a little overwhelmed with all of this, all of the missions and stuff, yeah, it's very overwhelming for sure. And, yeah, you like the idea of having meals and urban community and going to where the people are. And this is just meeting number 1, so we're trying to see what support there is for these ideas
We
going
did a
forward.
water meeting last week and then the self food meeting and then this meeting. It'd be great if you all could coordinate.
Yeah.
Talk about all of it before you
That's
have
interesting.
lunch.
I didn't know about the other meetings. Okay, I think I caught that. And for me, I just think we really need to look at in a very simplistic way, they go bankrupt, then you can buy a fire sale at that point, just you're gonna get money. When they're bankrupt, right? How the liabilities handled, that's like a real big question. But then there's this possibility, which is that you're over to a co-op, and we could continue to money back, right? Like things that Ian was talking about. So, you know, like get money from the Fed, which HECO can get right now because they're on status and their business is so, you know, low rated. Shane, you thank you, Stacy.
Hi, everyone. Shaytan Hodges, and I just wanted to make a comment related to taking back the power and where to start. And so you have to start somewhere, right? So this is where we're starting, and it would have been great to have a much more diverse group. And part of it was connected to the Hawaii Energy Conference was happening the same week. But just to give an example, I was the chair of the Maui County Water Board, and when I was vice chair of the water board, that's when Mahipono came to town, and that's when 40,000 acres was purchased, and they had half the little water system, and there was all these things going on, and the water board kept inviting Mahipono to come and talk to us, because as the water board, we had questions, like, what are you growing, what's happening, and they wouldn't come. So, and I actually, there was a big fight in the legislature at the same time, the water theft bill, and I told people, hey, I'm vice chair of the water board, we can take this up at the water board meetings, and people said to us, nobody listens to the water board, nobody cares. Just an advisory board, won't make any difference. So I was like, okay, well, whatever, but I'm gonna keep doing it. So we started fighting them, they wouldn't come, we wrote letters. Ultimately, one of the board members, Stan Franco, said, what's going on here? Like, this is really freaky that this Canadian pension fund is trying to control our water. We should take it over. It just so happened that the Maui, actually it was Maui News at that time, Kihau Sarisa was there, she did a big article. It got to the state legislature, it had an impact because I asked a question where I asked the water director, I said, we're hearing from the legislatures, et cetera, that all of upcountry, or the majority of the water from upcountry comes from the East Maui water system, which I knew was patently untrue. And so he said, no, that's not true. It's like 10% is actually backup water. Big Mayor was there often saying, look at the numbers, that's not true. But my point being, this all started with this sort of crazy idea that San Francisco had, me asking some questions on a board that everybody said had zero power, didn't make any difference. Now, we have the Community Water Authority, that was a charter amendment that the community overwhelmingly voted for. We're having these amazing meetings that are moderated by Jonathan Scheuer, who is a brilliant moderator and an expert in water. And he said himself, this is something that's never been done before, where the community is deciding how they want to run this water system. And it started with asking questions on a board, and now that board, we talked about the recent win with the Chicago group that wanted to do the wells up country. Dick Mayer said, we gotta have the water board look at it. We have amazing experts on the water board. When I was on the water board, not so much. But now you've got these people who are total experts. We have a respected board. It's making a difference. The community came out overwhelmingly and stopped the Chicago. And thanks to Carl, thanks to Dick doing all that research. And so, yes, who knows where this should end up. But like everybody in this room said, we're not happy with the way it is now. Like, Leilani was talking about with Molokai, people got together and they were educated. They learned, and yes, energy is not, water is, in my opinion, way easier. I mean, you can see water. Energy is a lot harder. There's all these regulations, we have to learn it, but we have to. We're out in the middle of the Pacific. We need to figure out how we can have safe, resilient, affordable, sustainable energy for our communities.
So the summary there, Shay, was articles with water was Shay, the idea was that it looked like the water couldn't do anything, and then it turned into lift work and effort and commitment to the water board that now has authority and got a charter amendment as power. Is that right? So it can happen.
Water authority, water board.
Got it. 247 is the water board. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lana Albright. I lost my place in Lahaina, but we were just up the way where I didn't have AC for years. We had 2 huge mango trees, and the linoleum floor was always cold, and we were very fortunate. But now I'm in Kihei, North Kihei, in a condo on the 2nd story. It is so hot, and I'm paying now have an electric bill. So that's been painful. It's like, what is it going to be this month, But then we've also been having power outages. We didn't have power from 9 to 6:30. I got a text saying it would be on by 1. I have a dog at home, and I know how hot it gets. Even on a cool day, the heat rises and my place is hot. So then I'm talking to the neighbors. Well, if our power gets out and we're all at home, I'm going to have a spare key here, and the dog's inside, and here's my number, and really just getting a plan if anything happens, right? After learning, everything happening in Lahaina. But also, with that happening in Lahaina and me feeling so far behind, and I know a lot of people with the trauma and trying to figure out what happened and how to move forward. But when it was all going on and having so many questions, I remember an auntie saying, well, what did you do? And I was like, what did I do in 2018 when the hillside was on fire? We soaked our house in water. We watched it hoping it wasn't across the road, but I didn't make any phone calls to the county. What is the plan? What was the plan if the fire did cross the highway? So now, after that, I said I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I am going to ask these questions, and it's time to talk to the community, and what do we do, and what can we do? So I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, I'm here to show up, I think more so than ever. And there is a lot going on. I mean, I was there at the meeting for the telescopes, and And that's overwhelming, right? The list is long, right? There's a lot that needs to happen. But I think this is a great movement, knowing that it needs to happen. And we can't afford to have another Lahaina incident. You know, we're in Kihei, I'm a barber. I have clients looking outside the window, and we're just looking at the telephone pole sideways, right? And we thought immediately after that fire, they would be out there correcting every mistake, right? Oh, this is the time, we're gonna see change. And we're waiting for change, and you're still looking at the same, you know, it's like, it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And so I'm here saying that I'm here and I'm gonna show up, and even if I'm late or I'm following online or, you know, really ready to listen, and I would love to see a change. And we're all here because we need change. So I'm here and I'm ready to learn, and a lot of this is so new, but just, there is a lot going on, but something needs to be done. So thank you all, I really appreciate it. Wow.
Thank you, Lana. And so to summarize quickly, that your power pole and Kihei are also tilting some power outages. And what do we do? What can we do? We need to do something. It's not working the way that it's better.
Also answer, calling them and them not having one answer on why we didn't have power.
No answer.
No answers.
We did hear from some of our members from our meetings that there is a definite risk of more power outages or rolling blackouts and so on, because the way that Eco is planned, in 2 years, it looks like we won't have the ability to have the power we need. Is that right, Shane? I mean, it's hard to know, but it's kind of not looking great.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to do a little call to action at the end of this meeting, so if that's okay. I want to give you a little bit of an update on what the state of the grid is here in Maui. So we are planning on retiring Kahului Power Plant in 2028. We currently have another fossil fuel plant that's called Ma'alaya, and it's the largest generator on the island. And currently it is really old, and it has a lot of parts that have come out of date, and they're not able to get those parts anymore. So there's a real chance that after 2030, we'll be facing some serious energy insecurity, with the majority of our fossil fuel plants being either out of line or not able to be repaired because there's just not the adequate parts. That means that rolling blackouts could certainly occur. We don't have any renewable projects other than the AES project that just went online in the middle of the island. That's the only one that we have on deck right now, and so there's no additional generation that's being planned for the island. Not only are we looking at infrastructure that has been completely degraded over time, not only is our infrastructure from substations, the one in Lahaina was like rusting and falling apart. I don't know if any of you ever saw it, but it was absolutely horrible. The transformers are leaking. We have infrastructure that is totally degraded across the island, completely compromised. And we're also facing energy shortages within probably 5 to 6, 7 years. So ultimately, right now, I can tell you, our utility is not doing any planning for us. This is not the planning that we need, and they have actually been negligent in that part for years now. So looking at what we need to do moving forward, we need to come together as a community and have a voice, at least in some degree, to say, PUC, do something about this. Somebody needs to be paying attention to the fact that there are not plants that are happening here for Maui, or this person from Lanai, from Lanai, that we have some serious issues that are coming our way, and nobody's tooting the horn, and we need to be paying attention now and making these plans now, so that we can actually have a call to action and move forward with energy planning. That's my call to action.
How can we get the community to act on Maui issues?
We need to ask them to open a rulemaking. So there needs to be a proceeding that's open that will actually hear our concerns and our complaints. We can intervene as a group within that proceeding, but we can actually elevate and raise to the commission that we consider the island of Maui to be in jeopardy, and that there needs to be some attention to it.
What is the government or
I think it's a group of citizens. I think it could be this group of citizens, the Maui Community Energy Alliance, right? Sorry, I got that all the time. But yeah, that's an entity that could say, hey, we need legal representation, we'll work with Ryan Hurley, who's really good. Yeah, he's hired, we just got a job. And we can actually ask him to start representing. There are legal avenues that they can take in order to get in front of the commission, so that this isn't just a blind issue. But something needs to happen for energy planning on this island of Maui and on Molokai. They took the initiative on their own hands in order to make action, that we're behind the power curve. It's, our clock is ticking. Although their energy infrastructure is also very, very disappointing. They have one generation facility, it's a diesel fuel generation facility that's old, and their infrastructure on their island is also very much degraded. So I think we saw the writing on the wall a little bit there. Like, we need to do something because it's not happening for us. Nobody's making these changes for us, and so it's time for us to act. So, well done.
Is there a way to create a civil lawsuit against
So that would be a question for Ryan Hurley. I'm sorry. Is there another attorney in the room?
We don't have
We don't have a what?
Lawsuits are only going.
Not anymore. No.
Community organizing is much more expensive. Lawsuits take a long time. I work for Papa and they've been suing for just environmental impact statement, and it's taken them almost 10 years. It just gets really long. Lawsuits take a very long time.
But we can do something. And that's what we're here for. And that's like the whole impetus behind this is like, what happened in Lahaina is not acceptable, but what's happening on the rest of the island is also not acceptable. And so something has to change. We have to take that power back, and that decision making back into our hands and say, this is our energy future. This is it right here, right now, and we have to make it. So, yeah.
It's one of the many issues we have going on.
Absolutely.
Housing, we're local here, but we need to talk about that.
Yes, exactly. And that was one of the things, like, when we even started talking about this was, is it the right time to be talking about energy issues when we have so many other crises happening? When housing is such an issue, how can people pay attention to energy issues when they don't even have a place to rest their head?
It's part of the same solution.
Exactly. We have to
Not
start
now,
thinking
man.
holistically, just like what they were talking about, what Melanie was talking about, is thinking about water, agriculture, land use, all of it collectively, and how we can actually fulfill our community's needs.
And this could also be negative trauma, because we're so close to where fires that just talking to people about sustainability and not happening. Going to, we have water issues, we have housing issues, that's trauma. If people are not going to run towards it, right, they're going to run away from it. So this is a very delicate matter.
I have a question in the back. We have a sunflower out wants a question, Kelly.
I come with bad news. I represent the sunflowers around the world. I started this legislative session, the Capitol. We were sort of fighting to get biodiesel sort of recognized as a source of firm renewable energy that we locally produced, and just trying to get our name on the tablet. And one thing I noticed, and I put in a comment, was that biofuels were not a part of the survey that you guys put out. So I'd like to see that, at least on the list of options to be chosen from. But it's also part of the solution that I saw at the Capitol, which was everybody's working together. And Henry Harris is an amazing leader, and I learned so much from him. And but there's just so many people there that are willing to do the right thing. But you gotta show up, you gotta have your voices heard, everybody. Now what's amazing here is that we have Councilmember Kelly Rollins-Fernandez and Mr. Johnson, Kelly Keene. These are amazing leaders here. There's an election coming up. You have the right to elect other progressive people that are gonna fight for your energy and independence. That's one of the keys here. And we're talking about how do you bring local energy control. The council has the purse strings, council, all these ideas, how are you gonna pay for it? It's gonna come down to the council. And we have amazing talent on the council, but that depends on you putting the right people in the office and giving them the support and the power where it needs to go. And finally, a technical question, I had a couple of questions for Henry Curtis, but I think some of you guys can answer them. And it's another issue that was at the Capitol, which was wheeling of electricity systems. And so when you look at the infrastructure, is a huge problem because these companies own the infrastructure. And getting rights to use their electric infrastructure is a huge deal. Wheeling was brought to the Capitol in so many different ways. There's so many bills. I think you look, they're just all over the place. I don't think any of them made it, or the most watered down versions did. And I think the wheeling could be something that is sort of a halfway between us and a co-op, which is getting local control. I would love it if someone up here could explain wheeling better than I can. But is wheeling a good option, and for Maui in particular? And the thoughts about wheeling, the cost of wheeling, is that something more so that don't bite off more than you can chew kind of thing? Wheeling could be the solution to that. And then my final answer was on civil disobedience, and we already lost opportunity because I was going to say we should just kidnap Henry Curtis. The guy, he knows what he's talking about. He's an amazing resource. We have so many resources in this room. It's just an honor to be here with you guys. But hopefully this is the beginning, and we'll see these things, and we will pay for them next January when a new council takes over. And so keep your eyes on that and make it happen. My first name is Forrest.
I just want to explain quickly what wheeling is. An example would be, let's say the county is the biggest user of electricity on the island because they pump sewage water, they pump fresh water, drinking water, they have street lights, and plus all the buildings, etc. Wheeling would be that this county put its own solar farm up, and then is able to distribute that power to the pumps that are pumping the water up in the wells, or to their various other sewer lines, etc. That would be good, but using the utility lines, but to use the electricity from one location to another, that's what wheeling is.
Yeah. So wheeling actually has been in front of the commission for a long time. So there's actually a requirement that the commission look at wheeling. So there's a lot of legislation that was introduced, but is somewhat duplicative or also just trying to advance it to a greater degree. The commission has chosen not to deal with wheeling for a very long time as well, unfortunately. It is something that we were looking at and we wanted to bring back up, but we didn't have the resources at the time. There were so much other things to focus on. So I do believe it's going to take legislative action in order to raise it and make the UPUC. Yes, you must look at this now. You must do it now. It is. So I'm going to give just a really quick example of Ann Arbor, Michigan. So Ann Arbor, Michigan is an ETE service territory, and they have outages all the time. The reliability is terrible. They can't get renewable energy, and they're just so frustrated. So the city decided to look at building infrastructure that is they call it a solar energy utility, and they want to build duplicate infrastructure because DTE will not share those transmission and distribution lines with any residents on the system. But they want to be able to have one consumer that's generating electricity be able to wheel it to another consumer that's not generating electricity when there's an outage. And that's called wheeling, using distribution infrastructure to transport energy from one location to the other. Now, in order for them to meet their requirement, they're literally looking at duplicating that infrastructure so that they can share energy across different residences and businesses throughout the territory, which is just an excruciatingly awful waste of money. But if you can't get wheeling and you can't get a wheeling utility, there are other ways of doing this. And they're actually finding that it could be cost effective. And they're talking to us over here in Hawaii, the Green Infrastructure Authority, because the Green Infrastructure Authority has a number of green bonds, not but green bonds. And they can finance solar systems for residential and commercial homes. And so the idea could Ann Arbor do the same thing with green bonds that Hawaii's doing? And I'm looking at them and saying, well, if Ann Arbor can do this, why can't Hawaii think about doing this? So our infrastructure, thinking about rebuilding Lahaina, maybe we can actually not worry about what maybe they can build whatever they want to build, but we also do what Henry was talking about of creating our own type of utility where we build our own infrastructure and solar panels and interconnect them among the community, and we're almost duplicating it, but we wouldn't have to duplicate it if we could get in front of PICO right now and ask them to do what we want them to do with that community. So it's just a.
It's
our
landfill? Sharing?
It's sharing.
Sharing.
It's sharing power over
power
common
over someone
infrastructure.
else's property.
Yeah,
That's the problem, it's their property.
Yeah, sharing the infrastructure and
That
over
makes it so
property
much
lines.
easier.
Yeah.
Sharing.
There are other alternative, islands, like Alton or our landfill, that if you're, burning our landfill or whatever, big things like that, things that we already have a problem with. Such a space and where we put all our crap.
Yes.
Using that as an renewable.
Yes. Waste to energy, yes. Yes, and that's an excellent idea, because our landfill is going up. I mean, we're actually at a kind of an inflection point right now, from my understanding, is we're running out of space. So what are we doing with all this garbage? So
that would handle the issue.
Exactly. So that's the kind of ideas that we need to bring to the table, that we need to be talking about, because those are the very organic ideas that can move us
Well,
forward.
and the technology is already created. My son was a filmmaker for Maui, was doing Maui documentary on sustainability back in the day. That was this idea of human beings produce energy in their bodies to be able to tap into these other alternative ideas on how to, and inventors are already coming up with how to capture energy. Like, so that we become eventually free energy. Yeah. So that we don't need to be tied into that. Inventors test this whole idea a long time ago, and energy's free.
Thank you, Christine. Are there any other questions or comments? The audience came in, so I'm looking for a comment.
Why don't you explain what you think we can do? How this, like these ideas, and how we translate into the question.
Yeah, so if you've left us your name and your email, we're going to try to put together a little summary of this meeting to stand it out. Plus, we invite people to come to our next Zoom meeting on June 14th at 9 a.m. if you want to become more involved, so we can have more community involvement and greater diversity in our community. Right now, it's mostly people who are experts in power. We need community engagement as well. We want to move forward with that. So that's what we're requesting here. I think a lot of you put your name and email on, so we'll try to get you something out here within the week. And continue this discussion and have other community meetings around the island over time as we pursue how we can have a better Maui energy future. What that means, and does that mean a co-op or not? That's sort of what I like. But, that's one of our better options. That's what we're pursuing. And the group is looking into ways to finance that, what that would look like in terms of the mission statement, the vision statement, how that will prioritize that. We'll be talking to you more about how to do the multi and get help there. We've talked to design, consultant voices, a lawyer who's doing a lot of energy work, and other people on the committee have been trying to figure this out, because it seems like now is potentially a really possible only time we can even consider buying PICO the way things are going. So we're just trying to be ready if that becomes a possibility. And it's just like what I hear about with the way things are going, we don't do something now, nothing's ever going to happen and nothing's going to change. So we want to see what we can do. And many input from the people. We all need that. We come together, and as Leilani was saying, there's huge benefits of coming together as a community anyway. Just building our community in every way. And we start doing this at this, spread out various parts, not just energy. So with that, I'd like to close, and thank you all for being here. And here we go. Turn it over to Leilani.
So this isn't like super cultural kind of protocol, but it is a very culturally appropriate way to end the meeting. And that is to ask what could have been better, what did you really like, how could this have been more effective or interesting or informative for you? And every time we engage the community in Molokai, we ask those questions. And then at the next time we bring it, we improve. And that's the culture part of it, right? Reflecting and improving, reflecting and improving, reflecting and improving. And so we have a way to collect that kind of feedback from people where it's like anonymous and people don't have to worry about feeling bad for what they say. But all of that input is super important. Like maybe you guys didn't want to be pro-life. Maybe you guys wanted it to be earlier, not so late, or like the suggestions of breakout groups, or having food, or being able to bring your kids, that kind of stuff. All of those comments from you folks who have showed up will, one, help you guys show up the next time, but two, help others feel like they can make the time to show up too, and that it's going to be a good use of it.
We have an exit survey.
We actually have an exit survey that asks us that, which we should have put out as the other people were leaving, but we'll do better next time as well. So thank you, Leilani, thank you all, and the panelists, and everyone who's still here. Aloha.
Thank you all.